Oh, nice. Okay, everyone is now connecting to their audios and logging in. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and good evening. All right, I think we have everyone so far that has logged, that was in the waiting room now in. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Yvette Janier Holder. Tonight is a very, very exciting evening for me because it is a culmination of a three-part series for Women's History Month, celebrating women in various areas, and to be able to top it off with entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs in transportation. For me, it's just like a very amazing experience. So I thank you all for joining us this evening. I'm just going to give a few more minutes for folks to finish connecting. In the meantime, I will say that we are, the chat box is open if you want to submit questions. During the panel discussion itself, if there are questions that come up, feel free to submit them in the chat box, and we will open up the lines and go through questions and things like that after the panel discussion itself. And then to kind of round off the evening itself, we will also have a segment where we will talk about opportunities that are available to WBEs. So that's Women Business Enterprises who are certified as WBEs. Okay, I think we are good to kick off. Again, my name is Yvette Janier Holder. I am the Executive Vice President for comto-ny. It gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce to you our President of the chapter, Mr. Richard Watson. And Richard, if you would take us away and just kind of kick us off for the evening, that would be awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Watson. I'm the President of comto-ny. And for those who are not familiar with comto, I'll just give you a brief description of who we are. Comto is a national, well, let me start with this. Comto is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. That's right, 50 years. Comto started on the college campus of Howard University in DC in 1971 by a small group of visionaries. And 50 years later, we're 34 chapters strong. We're representing thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people in the US and in Canada as well. We're recognized because we have a strong advocate program where we are trying to level the playing field in the transportation industry, as well as maximize the participation for minorities, women-owned businesses, veterans, people with different abilities, and the likes. And it's our commitment to make sure that we can get as many opportunities to those communities as possible. Tonight, I'm so excited because this is the third event that we've done this month for Women's History Celebration. And Yvette came up with this vision and said, Rich, we got to do it. And I said, let's get it done. And let me tell you, the first two were awesome. And I am confident that tonight will be also awesome because the lineup, I'm not going to steal the thunder, but the lineup tonight is awesome. Just let me say that we're going to hear a lot of great information. And for some, they're going to be inspired by the stories and the perspectives that will be shared by our panelists. So without further ado, I just want to step back and enjoy tonight's conversation by a group of dynamic women in this industry. So that being said, sit back and let's enjoy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich, for that. Okay, so we are ready to begin the evening. Tonight's session is Women Entrepreneurs in Transportation. Our moderator for the evening is going to be Tamarra Causley Robinson. Ms. Robinson is the CEO and founder of TCR Coaching and Consulting. She is a certified personal and executive leadership development coach, certified mentor coach, consultant, and motivational speaker. Her mission is to create a massive movement of professionals, especially diverse individuals, who are inspired and empowered to rediscover their voice, to have the audacity to make courageous choices, and to boldly take charge of their lives and careers without apology, guilt, or shame. Now, if there's a better way for me to introduce her, I just don't know how. Tamarra, I'm honored to have you this evening as our moderator. And so I hand the program over to you, and I just tell you, take it away.
Thank you so much, Yvette. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I don't want to spend too much time talking because there is a lot of gold that's waiting for you all this evening. So I will introduce to you our panelists, and we'll jump in. So I'll start with Sheila Jordan. Sheila is a managing partner of Knowledge Architects, LLC. And it's a consultancy focused on workforce development and organizational change. So there's a lot of change going on. Wow. I saw this, there's lots of threads here. And so change, we know what change is. I think we know a lot about change, right? She recently founded AR4 Transit, a technology startup that designs work instructions for maintenance using AR and 3D technologies. Lots of technology, I love it. And so that's just a little brief something. She's got a lot more to share with you this evening. We also have with us Margo Cargill, and she's founder and CEO of Titanium Linx Consulting, Inc. And it's a diversified project impact management firm that specializes in corporate, institutional, and government strategy. And she uses a lot of her expertise in the areas of business and economic development through research analysis, marketing, communications, public relations, got to take a deep breath, government affairs, and regulatory compliance channels. So welcome, Margo. We also have Lena Walsh. So Lena is a principal owner of RL Controls LLC. Her vision and strategic initiatives are based in serving diverse and technical needs of the mass transit industry since 1991. Under her leadership, she has developed and improved, becoming an ISO certified 9001 2015 systems integrator, delivering on complex integrated solutions from vehicle to infrastructure. I love your mantra. Do what you say and say what you do. Yep. Easy. Love it. And certainly, last but certainly not least, we have Zenaida Rodriguez, and she is the Deputy Chief Diversity Officer for the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights at the MTA. In this capacity, she's responsible for leading a whole bunch of units. So I'm just going to read it off because y'all know what this is. DBE certification programs, operation, reporting, and MWDBE SDBOB outreach events. So lots and lots of wisdom that you will hear this evening, and you will hear from each of them, right? And so I just want to kick off this conversation this evening talking about change, right? So 2020, we got to just take a deep breath around what 2020 meant for us. And Sheila, I'll start with you. What has change really meant for you in your organization? You as an individual first, and then your organization, and then everybody else go ahead and jump on in.
Yeah, so you're right. This has been an epiphany for me in a lot of different ways. As a consulting firm, and really focused in transit and workforce development, and then seeing sort of, my whole life and business blow up in 2020. You start thinking about sort of what's next and how did we get here. So the epiphany for me, the clear as day vision for me was, I can't stop here. I've got to figure out what's next. and I've got to pivot, and I've got to redesign the strategy, and I have to really think outside of the box. So I've had my company for 12 years. I was very comfortable. It has a cadence. It really is, sort of on its own. But the wake-up call for me was, yeah, not really. So for me, I did a lot of things that meant stretching and stepping outside of my comfort zone. I started a technology company, and it's a startup. We're going after funding. We're building some really great technology for young workers. And so it is new, it is a challenge, but it got me out of my comfort zone. I had to do something different and come outside of that box. And sometimes we just need to get shaken up a little bit to figure out what else is on the plate that we are supposed to do, that work we're supposed to do, that we weren't out there doing. So I'm ready for the new challenge.
Wow, beautiful. Who would like to jump into that pool?
I mean, I have to say, change, really 2020 was just so rough and so scary, like on all levels. This was next level. It was just next level at all levels. But me specifically, in terms of business, just like you, Sheila, you were comfortable in it being, on its own and, growing, developing on its own. And then you realize that in times like that, that's when you really have to rally together. And so I formulated some amazing partnerships during COVID. Because it really was, okay, if we can make it out of this, we can make it out of anything. So, really calling on your fellow women entrepreneurs and business people. As I said, the first time I successfully, teamed and bid on projects. So that was a big deal for me because, that trust factor as an entrepreneur in the early stages, you try to go it alone. And it was really a wake-up call for a lot of businesses that you realize that your business model couldn't just be solely relied upon on what you have built, and that you might have to branch out and explore partnerships and, teaming and joint ventures and things that you might not be comfortable with, but you have to get comfortable with it real fast in order to survive and do that pivot. So really that was an epiphany and a real turning point for my company as well, because we also did see some growth out of that in very difficult times.
Yeah, beautiful.
I can go next. So just jumping off on what you said, Margo, for me, the hard part is this forum right here. So this is not where I excel. This is not where I'm used to. It's not where we grew up kind of doing business, right? And so the difficult part was there are no more, the conferences we used to go to, the pre-bid meetings. Even when Margo and I met, that event in New York doesn't exist anymore. So what was scary for me personally is the way that I'm used to performing daily, monthly, weekly is gone. And it's a very scary kind of situation to be in, where all of a sudden now all you have is the screen, and now what? Or the phone, or and it's not how I built my business. It's not how we go about, getting, like Margo was saying, partnering or teaming. It just doesn't exist in the forum that I'm used to. So it's quickly having to go back to, your supply chain, to your customers, to everybody that you've dealt with, and to say, okay, how do we handle this now? What do we do? Because for me personally, it's just difficult to do this. Like the first thing I said for you guys when we were on is, I wish this could be in person.
Right. She's like, oh, come on now. We could just meet face to face, right?
Exactly. So, and it's just part, and that's what I thought, when Margo sent me the email, would you like to be a part of this panel? The first thing I thought of, it's a good thing at some point we actually met, because this wouldn't be happening unless So it's us really thinking about this in a very different way that we were never trained, it was never taught, and everybody's just learning to, what do we do?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like the thread really is relationships,
It is, yeah.
right?
And it's built so far, right?
It really is relationships, and it's everything. And so, you know, talk to me about how you go about building relationships. What do how do you go about doing that? And I know it's difficult now, but we've all been taxed. We all have been, put to a different level of how do you continue to build relationships in a virtual way?
Yeah, for me, I think two things happened. There was one side where it was difficult and we all were pivoting. But the other piece, I think, for me was it also gave me an opportunity to connect with people who were all experiencing the same thing.
Yes.
And so in that shared experience, we all found our way together. And so I have really, sort of gotten into this groove around how to navigate these relationships now, right? People are much more receptive to taking meetings on Zoom. I don't have to get on a plane. I was on a plane every week going somewhere. In lots of ways, it streamlined the way I do business. I had to really, again, think outside of the box. How do I do business in a very different way with some of the people that I know and people that I don't know? And so we are trying to leverage every tool in the toolbox. When I tell you there's technologies and things and tools out there that I had not even thought about because we were all in our comfort zones and how we do business and our cadence around that, I am using all kinds of new tools and new toys to make this make sense and to make it easier for me. So lots of ways it was difficult to adjust, but I'm in a groove now. I've got a little, I got a little rhythm going around this technology.
She's ready.
I'm glad somebody has a rhythm and has a system, because I still feel like I'm adjusting. I'm still being dragged along because
Yep, level of acceptance. It's like, no, I'm not ready yet still.
But it is great, and technology is amazing, and it's really pushed and propelled all of us and all of our business into greater efficiency. Just like you said, Sheila, we're, as much as we would love to have that, that lunch or that working lunch meeting and things like that, it really is more productive if we stay and do the Zoom. But there's still going to be room to still do that working lunch environment. But to get back also to, the in-person versus the virtual. One of the things in the construction and infrastructure and transportation industries is you have a lot of site visits. You have a lot of things that there's just no way the pre-bid meetings have to be on site, to be able to see what you're dealing with, what this project is really about, but also to meet the project managers. And that's where the networking comes in, is just showing up. Like half the battle is showing up. So you can't really show up in the same way when you're looking at a list of names or email addresses and engage them the same way that we used to when we just showed up with our hard hats and say, okay, I'm here and I'm ready and I'm willing. So, that's finding that balance in this new environment, in this new world is really going to be interesting, for all of us.
I think the other part that comes in, Margo, to what you're saying is this is the time you have to really, for me anyway, depend on the team that I surround myself with. That's where that comes even more important than back in the day when we could just get on the plane and go, right? That's when I have to do a lot of strategizing with everybody that's around me, whether it's people that work for me, or customers, or potential suppliers, or anybody that I would work with. This is where that's so even more important, because that's when, what do we do? How do we want to handle this? This is the next challenge. And everything that you would do in person now needs to be talked about and arranged in a much more formal way, where before it was very casual that could happen. And now we need to talk about this, because this is the next problem coming up, and this is the next challenge that's going to come in. What does everyone think? And I find that at times like this is where the executive team and the team they have around you, that's what's going to help me to move to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody does anything alone.
Right.
Although we would want to believe that we are the center of the universe, right? In our own ways, but we know that we can only be as good as the person that we bring along, and the gaps along the that need to be filled are filled by other people.
Exactly.
And so I was thinking about a couple of things, and Margo, you said something about showing up, and all of you are entrepreneurs and powerful women in your own right. And so what when you think about showing up, what was it about how you decided to show up as an entrepreneur? What was it that just lit that fire under you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's that grit, and it is that fire in your belly that, you want something different, you want something better, you want something more tangible, that, every ounce of what you are putting into the work that you do every single day is being rewarded. And that's one of the reasons why I went into business for myself, as opposed to working for someone else, where, someone else might get the credit for your hard work. And, that was always very difficult for me to wrap my head around, is, someone else getting the accolades for my performance. And that's the greatest part of owning your own business, is knowing that every tenacious step that you take is going to be rewarded in some way, or you're going to learn something along the way. It might not turn out the way that you had anticipated, but you're going to learn, and you will grow, and it will propel your business forward. So
yeah,
that showing up, and that fearlessness, that determination, the discipline and organization, which I lacked in the beginning.
Don't we?
But, those are the qualities, that you need, that will those basic things that will put you in the right place to be able to succeed.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Sheila, what do you have to share with us about that?
Yeah, wow. So for me, and as you were speaking, Margo, what it reminded me of was, where was I and what was the headspace when I first started? So I started my first business almost 30 years ago. So I'm on venture number 3. And the impetus for me were my children, right? I was in a full-time job. I was working 13 hours a day. And I think, Margo, you just mentioned, you weren't getting the accolades, right? And for me, I kept thinking about these 2 young girls and what they saw. How much was I able to really, really feed into them if I was working for someone else for 13 hours a day? And I remember just getting up one morning and going into my VP and quitting. And and people kept saying, you're crazy. You got a mortgage, you got 2 daughters. But there was a fire in my belly that said, this is it. These girls deserve more. I deserve control over what my future is going to be. And this is the day that it starts. Now, it was rough as hell, but I would not suggest that for anybody else. But I just remember it was that compelling for me, that I knew that this could not be my life. that the control and what it was I wanted to be and do, it was either going to be me taking control of that or somebody else was going to control it.
Yeah, I love that, love that, love that. Lena, what was it for you?
I think for me, it's interesting. It's a good question. I started a long time ago, 30 years ago, right? So it was, I want to say when I was born, but really, I was a little.
You were like 10,
Me
maybe.
too, I want to say that, Lena.
Maybe.
So for me, it really was, I found a niche that wasn't being met to where I worked at the time. And I thought, you know what, I can do this because there's something I'm meeting that I know is not being met in the industry. And, at that time too, you feel like, why not? Let's try it. I felt that I have something to give, something to offer. Let's see if it works out. It was more of, especially at the time, I think the younger you are, the more you feel that, why not? And if I also looked at it that if it's not now, then when? Right. It's a little bit of that as well. And then obviously when I started and what I'm doing now, it's so much different. And that's recognizing the fact that it will change, and you can't stay stagnant. What you did before is not what you're doing now. And that you consistently have to grow. You consistently have to evaluate the market, where you're at and where is the company going and where do you want it to be a year from now, 2 years from now, and then 5 years from now. And then I think that's what substantiated the growth and me staying in this is it's always evolving. Where we started and where we're now is just day and night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know for me, after working for someone else, it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I got certified as a coach while I was doing my full-time gig, commuting to New York, going back and forth and doing what you do. And you just decide, I'm going to bet on me.
Yep.
And that was probably the boldest thing I had ever done in my life. Right. And I'm like, I'm doing what, when people are like, no, you have to. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I can always go back.
Yeah.
Right. I can always go back. And I know I can always have whatever I want because clearly I've been able to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's amazing when you make that decision, whether like Sheila's like, you know what, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
And then backing up the being done with the hard work that it takes to do it, whether you plan, or you just spur a moment. It's never spur a moment, but it's like, okay, it's time to go down this road.
Right.
And so one final question before we get to one final question of our panelists before we get some questions coming from the audience is, I'm sure that most people, after hearing what you did and how you did it, they're like, there is no way on God's green earth that I would ever do that. Right. It's just like, no. So what tends to be, and Lena, I'll start with you. What do you think is the biggest fear for people around entrepreneurship, or women? Let me be specific, women around entrepreneurship.
I think I always felt that I have a lot more to prove, right, than anyone else. I have no room for error. So there are things and mistakes could be made on, a male can do that, but I'm not allowed to. It has to be perfect. I have to keep my composure. I can never get excited. Where for a male, it's a very different story. So there's a different standard that's put on a female in business, 100%, than it is for any male that would be in the corporate environment. On the other hand, too, is that what I think is the other side of it is I can see things, I think, as a woman more intuitively in a meeting or in a situation where I can just read people and I know that for me, this is not the right way to go, or this is not the kind of the atmosphere I want to be in. So there's that part of it too that comes in. But it's very interesting that there's, Margo talked a little bit earlier, your internal fear comes in, but the internal fear, I think, comes in from having a highest standard for ourselves, that when we can't fail, and we're not allowed to by the society, we're not allowed to by ourselves, because we place that other, we have to be at a different level and always prove that we can do this and we can do it better than anyone else. And it's an internal thing for sure, but that's what I think for me drives me to keep going more and doing more and continuing.
Beautiful. Yeah. Margo, Sheila, who wants to jump in?
Go for it, Margo.
I don't know. I feel like that says it all. It really is, because I feel like you're all saying what's in my head already. But that fear of failure is real. And, you know, we were talking about the barriers. You know, we all know the typical barriers, you know, in the industry, whether it's that bonding, the dreaded bonding in the insurance, or it's the proof of performance when you first start out, or, you know, just plain not being a part of the good old boys club. Right. So, you know, those barriers are pretty explicit. But it's the one that, you know, Lena is talking about, the fear, that barrier, when you can get over that consistent barrier, and it doesn't go away, you know, it's every big project when those big whales or those huge opportunities come along, it's that fear that you have to cross and that barrier that you have to get over in order to succeed. It's the barrier within yourself, and that's the fear. Fear is that barrier, the most important barrier that you'll ever have to get through.
Yeah.
I would just ditto both. I have experienced it, still experience it. You walk in a room, and even at this point in my career, where, you know, most of the time I walk in the room, I'm the smartest tool in the toolbox, right?
That's right.
But there are inevitably others in the room who make you feel less than. And, you know, it's really interesting, as confident as we are as women in who we are and what we do, there are moments when you check yourself, you're like, is it me? Am I? And you really do, you start second guessing yourself. You want to provide, you know, you want to be perfect. You want to, and I think we get in our own way. We get in our own way. So I get it. I feel it, and I understand it totally. But we are our biggest barrier to the success that we're looking for.
Yeah. And how, I just want to ask this one question because it's the coach in me, right? Because a lot of times people don't want to seek the help either, right? It's like, I'm trying to do it on my own. I think I can do it on my own. We can't do it on our own, but I still don't want anybody to know that I'm talking to somebody about this. When, as men in general, they talk about all the stuff they don't know how to do all day long.
Right.
And they help each other, they make those connections. We talk about relationships. How, just what's one thing that you do when you don't know, when the fear has an ability to potentially take over for you? What's one thing that each of you do?
I can tell you, for me, I have a circle of, you know, people that know me and that you feel comfortable in. It's my safe place, right? So, and early in my career, again, as Lena talked about, being fearful and having to have this, you know, this thing of perfection, right? This vision of perfection. I didn't have those circles because you don't trust anybody with your stuff, right? I cannot tell them, I don't really know this. And so it was harder for me to let go back then and to let people in, but I was really, really clear on this last venture that I don't, it's in a space I don't understand as well as I understand some of the other things I've done in my career. And that I was going to have to be as vulnerable as I have ever been in both my professional and personal life. And that is very hard, especially for someone who has, you know, reached some place in their career where they're fairly comfortable and they're kind of on autopilot. That's hard. So that speaks to a level of vulnerability and openness that we as women really have to be comfortable with, right?
I agree.
Hard. It is really, really hard. But for me, it's those safe places. I have a group that I can go to and say anything and share anything and without fear, in a safe place.
I love it.
And that's what I talked about, which is my team now that I would rely on especially times at this difficult time, but anytime that I'm not sure or I don't know what to do, which happens 100 times a day now, I would refer back to the trusted that you talked about. You have to have people surround you that want success, right? Success for everyone, and understanding that if one fails, everyone fails. So we want to make sure we, as a team, build each other up. And that's really, I think, very important, especially, for us, I think when we start doubting or not sure, that you to have.
Beautiful.
And,
Margo?
And I would say, as I guess of one of the newer entrepreneurs, it's, still in those, I'm still, for the most part, in those early stages. So you still almost feel as though you're faking it till you make it, fake it till you make it. So you still are trying to keep things pretty close to the chest. And so it's difficult. I see it back then, but it wasn't too far back then that I was doing that, where I felt as though I could not share, the difficulties of entrepreneurship, of motherhood, of balancing family life and professional life and things like that. But you do, along the way, find your mentors, your colleagues that have gone through the same thing. And then you realize that you're not alone. Right. That this happens to everyone. It's like, oh, okay, I thought I was the only one doing that. No,
Right.
No, girl, everybody does that. And it's okay to share that experience and not be so together all the time, because it's impossible. It's an impossible thing to live up to. So one of the techniques is really, getting on the phone with that friends, that colleague that could have potentially been my competition, that we ended up partnering with, that we now have formed a great friendship and, sometimes business around, and being able to share, husband's doing this, kids doing that, employees doing another. And it's a great relief. And it's a great relief to know that there are other women that are going through the same thing that you are, and that, you're not doing it alone. You might internalize it that you are doing it alone within your company, but there's another woman doing exactly the same thing in their company. And and that gets you past and pushes you through those difficult moments.
That is
true. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. I was burning. I was dying to ask that question, right? Because it's one thing to hear all the great things that you all are doing, and there's probably someone on the line is like, oh my God, that's them. That could never be me, right? So we have to kind of take the, it's not the man behind the curtain anymore. The woman behind the curtain is just us. Not even just, it is us. This is how we do what we do.
And you know what, I'll add to that. When you said that reminded me of some experiences that all of this has taught me in terms of being vulnerable and more open, is that everybody else is in the same place.
Yeah.
Right? All in the same place. And, these folks who I thought, oh, certainly they know, and I'm sure they'll be able to help me solve this problem. And then you go to them and they're like, that happened to me. And I'm thinking, what? So we're more connected and alike than we think. Yeah. And I think Margo made such a really good point earlier, that it's our fear and, our fear of, sort of outing ourselves to others. That is our biggest obstacle, because once you do that, once you let go of what other people will really think of you, and you so confident that you've got what you've got and you're doing your thing, and you just stay really focused on that, you will be surprised at how many people you have so much similarity with in terms of situations and, you know, and experiences that you guys could actually share and learn from each other versus, you know, holding back for fear of exposing yourself to something that's, you know, only in your mind.
Right, right. And that actually shortens the learning for someone else coming up, right? If I'm sitting at your feet and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm learning from you. Thank you. Right? And that's what it's about. So yes, so I'm going to pause. There's lots of great questions that are in the chat. So I'll ask, how did you secure your first contract for your business? So Margo, how did you secure your first contract for your business?
Well, my first contract was, I mean, if it depends on the industry, because I do public, private, and kind of public, institutional, nonprofit contracts. So my first contract was actually, it came out of working for free and volunteering, you know, working with a local university and the Chamber of Commerce. I can't say enough about organizations like Comto and, you know, your local chambers of commerce and SBDCs and, you know, the PTACs and all these great organizations that bring people together, because it was through networking and really doing the work to help your communities, your women entrepreneurs and minority-owned business entrepreneurs to get that information and those resources that we always seem to not have. It was through that, you know, through those channels of not being paid to actually do anything, but just being there to push the needle, to move the needle so that there was more representation of us in entrepreneurship and business.
That is gold. I don't know if y'all heard what she said. It wasn't free. It was paid in advance. It was experience. It was connecting with people in a genuine way. It's like you wanted me to, okay, I'm gonna learn it, I'm gonna do it, right? Sororities and fraternities, and you know, this is ways that we lead in so many ways. Woman after my own heart. I love it. All right. There's a lot of other questions. So Sheila, what mentor in your career can you credit your direction or success within your path?
Wow. I would say that there were several. And I am a believer that different mentors come into your life and provide support at for different needs, right? So when I was in corporate, I had mentors who, you know, sort of helped me navigate politics, right? Internal politics. When I decided to go out on my own as a consultant, I needed mentors that were networkers, that, you know, could be that could introduce me. When I started my business, the folks that were in the mentoring network were inspirational and motivators and mentors. So I always tell the women that I mentor now that you have to be really intentional about what you need at any specific time in your career. So don't just go and get a mentor because they're there and they're available. What is it that you know you need right now for this moment, and be very intentional about finding that person. So I still have different mentors and advisors. They're more around finance and strategy, around how do I sell this company at some point. And so I need different things at different times. So I hope that helped.
No, that did. What screamed at me is know what you want, and you got to ask.
Gotta ask.
And when you're with a mentor, it's not about just collecting people, right? You can't be a collector of people, right? You're going to give something and you're going to get something, but you got to know what it is that you're asking for. Yeah, I love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, Lena, you ready? All
Yes.
right. What is a challenge you have had and how did you overcome it?
Oh, let's see. Many, many challenges.
I know, pick one, right?
I think the challenges come up every day and everything that you do in terms of, oh, we have a problem here in the project. What do we do? Right.
Mhm.
A challenge could be a customer will call you and say, we need something else and you're not providing what I thought you were going to. So the challenges are constant. I
Mhm.
think the overcoming is really sitting back a little bit and understanding, analyzing what is the problem, right? And really seeing it from that other side, the other point of view. So the reason there's a challenge because somebody's seeing that, okay, this, and this is not happening. So if that's not happening, putting myself in their shoes, in their situation, what would I want to see resolved? How would I see that if I was the one on the other side? That to me always, it always helps to see the bigger picture. And then I'm able to say, okay, I understand. So what I thought we quoted or what I thought we were providing, this is not meeting your needs. So I want to make sure we do. Let's change it. So it's putting myself in their shoes and
Mhm.
able to then say, okay, if I was there, how would I do it?
Yeah, yeah, flexibility,
It is.
right? It's like, oh, you wanted what? Oh, okay. And sometimes it may not necessarily be what you had in mind. It might not even be you,
Exactly. But
right?
you have to, and you have no choice. You have to solve it. And the way to solve it is understanding, compassion, and
Mhm.
they be able to provide it.
Yeah,
And I think that's
beautiful.
what women do best,
Yes.
I remember you saying that, Lena, about being intuitive about certain things that you observe your counterparts that don't do it as well. And being intuitive about meeting people in the middle and,
Mhm.
not having as much of an ego, maybe, just, kind of
Yep.
being willing to take that step back. I think
Yep.
naturally or innately, we have the ability to take that step back as women and negotiate. We're the best negotiators and communicators. They always say that women are the best communicators. I'm in the communications industry, communications and just being able to see everything. We do it all the time with our families, every day. So, we're just carrying that over into business, those qualities.
Yep.
Right, right. Absolutely. This doesn't mean that we stop being who we are.
Okay.
I think it's also knowing and understand the fullness of everything that we bring. And sometimes we don't always understand that either until we're in these places and spaces where we're like, oh, I did that. Or we did that. Look at what we did. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to remind everyone that, we're having this great conversation. I don't even want to interrupt it, but, we're here until 7:30. So we have about, another 40, I think 40 minutes if I can add really quickly. Zenaida, I know that you're there, probably ready to just jump all the way in. It's like, come on, it's like double dutch right back in the day. Just let me get in the rhythm of the rope. Yeah, please add your thoughts and genius to this conversation.
Goodness, first of all, I want to thank Comto for an Yvette who calls you on a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning, to make sure that you're on board for the passion and the leadership and putting this program together because it's just listening to the success stories and listening to Sheila, who we met years ago in a meeting, and knowing that she now has a startup business. And Margo, I remember you and Lena. And so, to see you grow through this whole transition that we're going through right now, it's exciting, and in some sense, I want to say that it's rewarding to hear that, it's such powerful women, tell their story. You know, it's very rewarding to the type of work that I do on my part. This pandemic has been, I know it has been very interesting to the entrepreneurs, but on my perspective, agency where our department goal is to empower the minority business community to grow economic development and to see the economy gets hit so hard during this pandemic. What does it bring out of our program? And the passion that I have behind it is to execute change. You know, so well, I hear you all talking about executing change and building relationships. You know, we're on this side looking, okay, so there is a change, and how do we continue to build relationships so that we can connect and we can fulfill our goals and our mission as an agency. Yeah, it's a passion on this side also. A little bit of advertisement. Most of you know that, you know, the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights here at the MTA is responsible for implementing programs and developing policies that are going to ensure compliance with civil rights laws and regulations and the minority business program that we have. But we're also a change agent on our side. We are here to assist and establish minority programs so that you can grow. And build relationships is a major part of it. So when the pandemic hit, I'm sitting at home and I'm saying, okay, so this is outreach. You know, how am I going to reach out? Okay. And what has happened throughout the months is that we found a new initiative to help minority businesses. And while you feel that this relationship, you know, it's all has to be touchy-feely and let's work the room, you know, this has, in my opinion, has assisted entrepreneurs to network in a different way and more successfully because it cuts down on your time, right? And so our responsibility would be, okay, so, you know, who do they really need to network with? We can't cut the relationships. We can't cut the procurement opportunities. We've expanded our outreach programs to include minority businesses, you know, the advocacy organizations that you need to meet, to do a meet and greet. I have Christine Norman, who is on the phone and is on the platform, and she's the director of supplier diversity. And while the pandemic hit, supplier diversity at MTA HQ procurement, and when the pandemic hit, I'm like, who do I call? Who do I find out what's going on at the agency? I know there has to be some type of opportunities. So I call Christine, you know, as helpful as she is, because she's in procurement, the heart of the opportunities. And I'm like, Christine, what's going on? And so we were able to go back and forth on, and she was able to give me information on how we could move forward. So it's interesting how women, we always look for a way. We've been mothers, we've been, you know, women have a different sense of entrepreneurship, I always believe, because we're known for making change, and we're known for taking on more than we should handle, you know, and we're to make it work. So my part is to talk about the MTA, and I'm sorry, I just got so mixed up in all the passion, you know, that I'm like, wait a minute, we're all entrepreneurs in our own way. So The Department of Diversity and Civil Rights, again, is undergoing change also, as you may know. But we're making change towards the positive, and we're making transitions with the ever-changing pandemic, the long-standing pandemic that we're in right now. We don't know when we're going to be getting out of this. All we could do is move forward, and the changes that we make are to stay, are to stay here. It's not, there's no looking back. We're comfortable, we're doing what we got to do, and we've got to move with the flow. And I have to say that the MTA as a whole is moving the same way. It was mentioned that, what are we going to do about the site visits? What are we going to do about meeting the project managers? Well, the MTA is currently creating the website so that those visits, those procurement, those bidding opportunities are going to be online, so those are one of the changes that we're going to be making here under the leadership of Michael J. Garner. For most of you that know him, he is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer, and he's always throughout the pandemic, he has been in the community and working with the procurement departments and increasing our goals or maintaining our goals in some areas as the pandemic has hit. Our small business development program has kept continuously. We're now on a virtual platform. We increased our goals to our DBE goals from 18 to 20%. We announced it on a virtual platform with over 350 firms on a Zoom call. So we're not stopping, we're moving ahead. There are so many initiatives that are to come. Our discretionary program, and I'm going to let Christine talk a little bit about the supplier diversity program that the MTA has also, but we're moving ahead full force on making sure that our goals are met, with successful firms such as yourselves. It was mentioned joint ventures. Joint ventures has actually expanded during this time because firms have actually been struggling for survival, so we have always pitched that joint ventures on minority businesses has been one way to go, and that has aggressively been building up. So I'm excited. My passion is here with the Minority Business Program under our leadership. Our team is extraordinary staff that has been on board in the office during the pandemic and gearing and ready to go. So I'm going to let Christine talk a little bit about the Supplier Diversity Program and how this pandemic is affecting change in that area.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, rather, and happy Women's History Month. I came on to be a participant. Actually, a listener, but I have no problem introducing myself. I know some of you, and I'm happy to see all of the panelists. I'd like to congratulate you on your success and your success with the MTA. I know that RL Controls, Lena, does lots of work with us, and Sheila as well. And congratulations, because I've actually watched your businesses grow and, continue to do good work. So I'm so very proud of you all. I think you can all really learn from these ladies because they have stayed engaged and committed and determined to do business with the MTA, and they've been successful in doing so. The first thing I would like to encourage anyone interested in working with us to do is to make sure that you get on the MTA's bidders list. The more you know about our opportunities and where yours might lie within the agency is the better prepared you will be to respond to those opportunities when they become available. Spend time on our website, get to know all about us, and, help us help you, know what we do so that we can help guide you in the right direction. Okay. The other thing is, I think it's important for you ladies to be engaged in your professional networks. So if you are an architect, you need to be in architectural organizations, maybe organizations that are geared towards women. You should be blogging, you should be doing white papers, you should be doing those things within organizations that help you stand out. Make us look for you. So if you stand out in your industry, then we're gonna want the best of the best. And that includes, minorities and women who are tops in their fields. You create the smoke, and we'll try and see where that smoke is coming from, because that's the fire we're after. We want to do, work with the best individuals. So, stand out in the crowd so that we'll come looking for you. And I think that at least that I know of, Sheila and Lena have been really great with doing that.
And if I can add something for you, kind of because I do work all over the country, there's no state like New York as the goals that you guys set for DBE, WB, MBE. If the goals are not there, no matter what we do, we can't participate. And you guys set the goals high, which makes the prime contractors look for meaningful scopes of work and not just random stuff that they can fulfill with 2-3%, which a lot of the states do. So New York is really serious about significant goals and contracts of large size that truly gives, I call it like Field of Dreams. You build it, they will come. You're not going to have anybody come if there's no field, right? So a lot of the states do it the other way around. Well, nobody can do the work, so there's no goal. The goals need to be there. The goals are not there, there's nothing for us to do. So I really commend New York for being a leader in goal setting and sticking to the goals, not reducing the goals when they get pressure from prime contractors to say we can't find anybody. You guys say, no, they're out there, you go look. And the goals are serious, they're significant, and this is why we're able to participate. So you guys do it like no other state.
Thank you for that. We try. It's challenging, and it's often challenging to find, the right businesses for what we do, but I do believe it's possible. I have to say, I'm glad to be here tonight because it is Women's History Month, and we've had tremendous success with women-owned businesses in, recent months. We awarded a uniform contract that is over $30 million, for the first time to a WBE prime contractor for New York City Transit and buses. And so, that woman will supply uniforms to the MTA. We also have $140 million contract for electrical supplies. That is all agency by a WBE electrical supply company. So I'm impressed and amazed at, the women and minority businesses that are winning prime contracts with the MTA. So I say, even when we don't think we're going to get a goal on a contract, know that that is an invitation for you to pay attention. You may not want to be the subcontractor. You may want to bid as the prime. And that's exactly what happened on both those contracts. And so I was blown away by being able, us being able to award that uniform contract, the first time to a, certified woman-owned business at that amount of money. And so look for the signs. Goals on a contract is a sign that we want your participation. And, and if you can be the prime contractor, even better.
And I don't want anyone to feel as though they can't be subcontractors. You guys should get the credit for that too, because I'm a subcontractor on the third track project, and I'm very proud.
Beautiful. I love it.
So,
Get
it
in
is
where
the
you
first
fit
step.
in,
It's
you know?
the,
Get in
yeah.
And that's a hard contract too. That's a hard
Yeah.
contract to get into. So
Yeah, so-
congratulations.
And you guys did a phenomenal job with outreach. So, you know, when you see these big projects, these monstrous projects, even if you don't feel that you can prime on it, you know, that's the first step, is the subcontractor, you know, position, is gaining that proof of performance on a huge project that, yes, you had a small role in, but when you have the backing of agencies like this that really are pushing our businesses forward, it's just a matter of time before you end up being a prime. So, you know, I want to thank the MTA as well for, you know, all their work that they continue to do. And New York State, as you said, Lena, that just keeps continually pushing the envelope and demanding, you know, that there is supplier diversity and inclusion for these dollars, because we pay taxes just like everybody else. So we should have equal opportunity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree.
And you know, Christine,
to these government-funded contracts. So
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm very proud to work and have a business here in New York.
Sheila?
You know, I've got to just have my plug too, because you ladies have seen me more than you probably
Yes, we have.
So what I will say is you just have to be persistent, and that you guys have been incredibly accommodating. New York is a big, bold, scary, bodacious thing, right? Guys are not like anyone else in the US, and it is sometimes difficult and overwhelming to navigate. But you guys held my hand, and you were really there to answer my questions, and having that sort of internal advocacy is priceless. So I just want folks to hear that it's a big thing, and having a contract in New York is a wonderful accomplishment. But, you know, there is this machine that is working, and you guys work that machine. So thank you so much for all that you do to get us through that machine.
Yeah.
Thank you. And stay tuned, because there's more to come.
Yeah.
Good.
I'll share a story briefly with you. This is true story, though. It came to our attention late that, I don't know, let me just back up a little bit. Everyone knows that the MTA has the highest discretionary threshold of any state or public authority. Our threshold is $1 million. So we learned that threshold was going to sunset on April 1st.
Wow.
And we worked last 2 weeks and last weekend, Saturday, Sunday into Monday, making sure that the legislators in Albany did not allow our threshold to sunset. So when I used to laugh when Michael Garner said that we work days, nights, and weekends. But it was never more true than this weekend. On Sunday, you know, I had a team meeting at 11:30 a.m. I was getting, you know, calls as early as 8:30, you know, talking about the work that we had to do. And Michael was out there, you know, speaking to the politicians and making sure that they understood our goals and accomplishments and why this threshold was important to the MTA. Just to say that around 8:30 last night, we received an email stating that they were going to extend our threshold for another 3 years. So it was all that work, but it was for a good cause, you know, and it was on behalf of all of you. Yes. So we need you to keep bidding and keep showing up and keep knocking on our door, so that we can keep knocking on doors to get them open for you.
Yep.
Yeah. Clearly community is at work, right?
Yes.
Clearly community is at work. And, you know, when you get that fire and the fear is like, oh no, and, you know, and everything else is happening, knowing that people are pulling for you, looking for you. When she said make smoke, I'm like, I wrote that down. I wrote it down. I'm like, oh, I gotta make some smoke, Tamarra. You know, what am I doing? And that's in anything that we do, right?
You know, and the lovely thing about our program and the lovely thing about empowering entrepreneurs and the work that you do is that, you know, it extends back into our communities. You know, it extends back into building the workforce. It's building our community. So while we, you know, worry about the pandemic, guess what? A lot of good things are coming out of this. You know, a lot of good things, not just for us, but for the generation to come.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, when you said that, Zenaida, you know, that, and it's, and again, for any men who are on the line, you know, when I think about how we are brought up to make sure that we take care. And so when women do well, the community automatically comes up, right? So when we as a community do well, the things around us, is not by accident that it's improving as well. So why not have women-owned businesses to do better so that their communities can then do better, right?
Yes.
It's no magic. It's just kind of built in. So yeah, this is amazing. I can stay with y'all all night, but I know you don't have all night. So we're about 7:15. Let's see. I'm looking in the chat. There is another question in here. What's on the horizon? Maybe we can end on this question and everyone can jump into this pool. Zenaida, this is for you as well. What's on the horizon for you and your company? What's on the horizon? What's like kind of out there, but you can still see it?
Yeah, I can tell you, I know what mine is.
Okay, talk to me.
It's an exit. I am clear. It's an exit with, you know, this technology initiative that will allow me to do the work that I love.
I love it.
Is spending time in our underserved communities and looking at how we, you know, build up those young folks that don't get touched, right?
I love it.
And looking at, for me, you know, learning is my thing. So I am looking at learning strategies and investing in those communities around family education and really innovative ways to teach us how to be in this environment and in this world and in work. But the other piece to that is the vision for me is how do I also take that money and invest it, or those opportunities, and invest it in other women. Because I remember coming up, there weren't very many of me. There weren't very many women that could talk into me, that could pour into me. And we have this incredible ecosystem of women. But I'm in a space now where, you know, the people who have the money don't look like me. And so I'm often in a room asking for money with people who don't even get me. So I really want to create a space for women who, when they want to come to the table and they need something, they have some people that look like them.
Yeah, like a little mini Black Wall Street.
That's the strategy.
I love
Yes.
Look, I'm done.
I love it. She says, I'm trying not to do this anymore like this, y'all. I love it. You've earned it. I love it. Margo, Lena, what's your horizon?
You want me to go, Margo? And then
Go ahead, Lena.
So I think for me, and for the next, and I'm trying to think what the time frame is, I want to say maybe a year, 18 months, is graduating from the DB program. I think that's the next step.
Beautiful.
Wow.
That is really the ultimate goal for us all, right? To become a business that is, we can actually subcontract now to DB companies, because I've grown out of it. Still going to be WBE, but DBE I'll graduate from. So it is a big step, and it's a big step because you want to make sure everything is all your ducks in a row. The financing is there, like you talked about. The contracts are there that are not DBE dependent. We're prime contractors in a lot of them, where again, DBE is not what's driving it. So that is the next step is a scary one, because it's you kind of letting go, but it's also what this program is there for, right? It's there to create an opportunity. It's there to making sure that we're not DBE for forever, that we can step up and actually become a standalone company, and then be a mentor to some of the proteges that I could take on and say, okay, now here's, I have a subcontract opportunity. Maybe you can do this for me on the next contract. So that is the next step. And actually, it's something that would love to talk to you guys in New York about. As have any other DBs graduated? What have they done? What was the next step for them? I have an idea of how I may, how we will move forward. But it's a scary step. There's no specific path forward. But this is the time to do it. So it's exciting.
I love it. I love it. It's like you're in the middle of the woods, but there's a path in and a path out. You got to create your own, right? But somebody else has chopped down something around there. Somebody lead me out of here. I love it. Amazing.
I'm going to add to that a little bit, Lena, to say that's a bold jump.
I know.
Okay.
Believe me.
That's a bold jump. My advice to you is, our programs, you never know. They may not be around, they may just not be around. So when you make that step, speak to one of us, speak to one of us, I encourage all of you to reach out to me, because that's, we don't want to, these programs are not made to bring companies up and then set them up to fail. Okay, so it's good to know how we can improve our programs to help you make that next step.
And there's nothing right now, there's no graduating program, right? There's no such thing as support mechanism. What happens at the next step? Now what? And what are some of the challenges that come with it, and what could be done for support, right? So it is. I think it's something that I'm going to continue talking to you guys about and finding out, what you think.
Yeah. So there is, with the small business mentoring program that we have, that is a small business development training program, but it's specifically related right now to construction opportunities. So, again, we're going to continue. And we need to hear your voices as to, how we can help you make that change. Yes. So
that was Lena's way to tell you she's coming.
She's calling me tomorrow, please.
Just in case you weren't sure. That's what I heard. I heard she's like, listen. And the other thing that I actually I'm going to postulate is, okay, so if it doesn't exist, y'all are going to create it.
That's what I was thinking. She was outlining the next program, that needs to be developed is that graduate program for the DBE program.
Right.
Pave the way from somebody up in here, right? Yes. Right. So Margo, what's on your horizon?
On the horizon is expansion. Luckily and thankfully, COVID, we made it through COVID. We're in a growth space, a growth phase for the company. And it's really exciting, to have partners that are ready to make that leap with you also. So not just doing business in New York State, but also now we've already branched out into, New Jersey. So, getting that certification. And speaking of DBE, the Port Authority, New York, New Jersey DBE allows you to kind of do that, that nice transition into New Jersey market as well. So that'll be the first out of state market that we're exploring. Transportation project, as a matter of fact, as well, over there. So we're doing multi-state now. We're going regional. That's what's on the horizon, is regional.
Beautiful. beautiful.
And
I
then, of
love it.
course, incorporating that technology component, because
Mhm.
we got to have the technology to be able to scale. You know, you can't be
Absolutely.
everywhere. When
Mhm.
you're a small operation, the benefits of being small and nimble is that you're able to pivot, and it doesn't take you as long
Right.
to turn the machine like those big companies. But at the same time, we need to make sure that our systems and operations are, you know, automated, and that the technology is there to account for the lack of let's say, the numbers, you know,
Yeah.
the massive numbers that would be required to do business in multiple states. And I know, Lena, I'm going to be calling you.
I love it. I love it. And Zenaida, anything to finish us out on the horizon with your organization and where you see it going?
You know, I just want to, we have an open door. At our program, we have an open door. We cannot set goals on our projects unless we have those ready, willing, able, qualified firms to be able to set goals with. You know, we're constantly looking to make change for the betterment of the firms and for the betterment of our agencies also, you know, because we do have mandates. So, you know, keep up the great work. I am extremely proud of you. Please stay in touch. If you are not certified, please come and speak to us. There are opportunities in that area. Come to our new firm orientation sessions. Make sure that you're up to date with the changes that our agencies are making on the website to affect the change with, you know, with the pandemic. So we welcome you. We welcome you. And it's so great to see all of you.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yvette, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wow. Wow. You know, I can't even tell you that when I sat down to put just this panel together, I had no idea that it would be as powerful as it is. I know it would be powerful, but I did not know that it would be as powerful as this was. And Tamarra, I just want to thank you. Your moderating is phenomenal.
Yes,
Phenomenal.
thank you.
And I want to share this one thing. You know, we talked about networking and the power of networking. And I want to tell you just a little history for each of the individuals that I handpicked to be a part of this program. You know, Sheila, I met through Comto.
Mm-hmm.
Margo lives in my community. We just happened to have been in a conversation where we learned about what our other connections were. Zenaida, you know, we work in the same building. We communicate with each other on projects and different events between MTA and Comto. And Lena literally was a reference
Came out of
from
nowhere.
Margo. Right. So I didn't even know that Lena knew this much about MTA and had been this much involved. So you can imagine how blown away I am right now on how successful this panel was. I mean, and Christine, you know, you and I,
Christina's a gem.
we've worked in the same building on various types of initiatives, and here you are. You just came to join the conversation, and we put you on Front Street. You know, and the information that you shared was absolutely phenomenal. I want to just share some stats. And these stats came from the National Association of Women Business Owners. More than 11.6 million firms are owned by women. 11.6 million. They generate close to $1.8 trillion in sales. and they employ nearly 9 million people. I just want that to resonate for just a moment. That says so much, so much. You know, the takeaways that I'm walking away with here is just absolutely phenomenal. Teaming, joint ventures, think differently. You know, what was it that kept making you show up, right? That was an awesome question, Tamarra. You know, and what did we hear? It's that grit, right? It's that tenacity that just says, you know what? We don't want everyone else getting the credit for our hard work. Wow, just absolutely powerful. If not now, then when, right? Another powerful one. Women have no room for error, right? Like, aren't we so hard on ourselves? Like, sometimes we are. You know, I sit in church sometimes and I hear my pastor say that all the time. Get out of your way. Just get out of your own way. And sometimes it is that voice that we have to sometimes silence, that inner voice, and just go with our gut. Having a trusted circle. How important is that? I know every single one of us from the time that we were in school growing up as from a child into our adulthood, it has always been that powerful circle of people who you know that no matter how bad something is, that you can count on them to help you walk away different than how you felt. They're different than how you started that conversation, and in a more positive way. Phenomenal. And Christine, yeah, you kind of you blew it away when you said, make the smoke, right? Create the smoke. We'll come looking for you, right? Like SOS, we want you. Goals on a contract is a sign that we are looking for participation. You know, I could go on and on and on. The powerful advice that you all shared with us this evening was just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I want to thank each and every one of you. You know, we have some folks on who were part of our initial series, and they just kind of stayed with it, you know. So thank you all for joining for all three parts or any part thereof. I just want to go back to our first series was about the power of women in politics, and it was titled Women's Political Capital, Our Voting Matters. And let me tell you why I want to go back to that. If you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. Goals are part of legislation. You can have a law, but if it is not enforced, if people are not held accountable, then it really just doesn't matter. It's just a law that could be in someone's dresser drawer somewhere. So, you know, the power of women, the number of women that now are not just on ballots, but are actually elected in various positions is absolutely phenomenal, because that means that our needs and wants and concerns are also at that table. You know, it is 7:31. I am very precious when it comes to time. I want to thank everyone for attending. And Rich, I'll just hand it off to you to close us out. But I want to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I mean, what can I say? I'm just going to go back to what I heard tonight. Tonight, we struck gold. We struck gold. The information shared tonight is just, oh man, it's just awesome. And I just want to say my hat's off to everyone tonight. I appreciate all that you do. And watching this conversation tonight, someone came to my mind, Madam C.J. Walker. And as I heard each and every one of you speak, I saw Madam C.J. Walker's vision, her legacy being lived right now in the presence. And I can go on, but I'm not, because I'm going to be respectful of everyone's time. I would just like to say that tonight, if I had to put 3 things together to try to sum this up: information. When you add information and opportunities and relationships together, you can monetize those 3 things. And like Yvette touched on, you know, the importance that I always find in network is that your network is your net worth. So the people you surround yourself with are an investment to who you are and who you have the ability to grow and become. So I'm going to hold back, because I want everybody to come back to another event so we can have another conversation about this, because this is something that needs to be talked about. Because you guys are building roadways and creating pathways and opportunities. And I think that's another conversation we need to have. So
literally.
Yes. So with that being said, again, I appreciate you. Tonight was a wonderful event. And Yvette, hats off to you. You went 3 for 3.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Have a
all.
great time, you guys. Love you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
great care. It was wonderful connecting.
Family talk there. Yes.
I just want to